Barnabas is a breath of fresh air on this show. You know, it was just a soap opera about, you know, trouble in people's lives, and now they've introduced a vampire. That's awesome. So in the beginning of Barnabas's beginning, Barnabas was evil. I mean, he was a pretty bad guy. I mean, if he found out what his secret was, he gonna kill you. Like, he was even gonna kill David Collins at one point, which I would be okay with because I hated David Collins. So when I first watched the show, I bought the Best of Barnabas, and the first one was episode 221, where Barnabas meets Maggie Evans in the Collinsport Inn diner, and that's probably one of my favorite episodes, mostly because it's, you know, that's the one that, you know, stuck with me the most, and that it has the most meaning to me because it's the first episode I saw. So Barnabas kidnaps Maggie Evans and forces her to become Josette, his lost love from 1795. But for some reason later, they make it 1797. So was Victoria supposed to have been there for 2 years, or... Oh, I'll get to that later. So for about 30 or so episodes, Barnabas has Maggie in his basement, and Willie's Willie's forced to help Barnabas. He can't really save Maggie, or he can't really do anything about it because, you know, he'll beat Willie. Wow. I never thought of that. Shit. This is the first time that this has ever come into my mind, that Barnabas beats his Willie. That's terrible, Barnabas. You shouldn't beat your Willie. Okay, enough of that. So, Sam and Burke Devlin and Vicky are all trying to help find Maggie, and, you know, it's no use. But before all this, you know, Barnabas has asked Sam to paint a portrait of himself to hang in the old house. Even though there's a portrait of him in the new house, or the big house. So it's basically, he looks different. So, like, he looks different than how that painting is, even though he posed for the other one. Right. So, out of nowhere, the ghost of Sarah Collins comes in. Sarah Collins is the sister of Barnabas Collins. So, she was okay. She goofed up her lines a little bit. She always started off, "Hello," or something like that, or some kind of like a little childish, "Hello." So, you know, people saw her, and they could pick her up, and she wasn't a ghost. She was, you know, human, flesh and blood. I mean, that's not a ghost. I mean, you know, she would talk to Sam Evans. Sam Evans picked her up and tried to draw her picture, and, you know, she even talked to, yeah, she's talked to everyone. You know, so she's in that room with Maggie Evans. She tries to help her out by giving her a clue as to how to get out of that room. The room with Tommy Wiseau. We'll get to that later. The room is all bricks. It's all like a bricked up room. And there's like a secret brick that if you push it or pull it or do something, there's like a secret passageway to get out. And she escapes, and Barnabas chases after her. So at this point, Maggie is so traumatized and so devastated that she just pretty much loses almost all sanity at this point. So she's taken to Windcliffe Asylum under the care of Dr. Julian Hoffman. That's right, Julian Hoffman is a man. But then an episode or two later, he becomes a she and becomes Julia Hoffman. So, in between those few days, Dr. Julian Hoffman must have had a sex change. Watch the show. Because, yeah, it was Julie and now it's Julia. And this other, Dr. Woodard, I think was his name, was telling this guy, "Oh yeah, Dr. Julian Hoffman, he is a good doctor." And then a few episodes later, "Oh yeah, Dr. Julia Hoffman, I told you about her, she's good." Yeah, and when she's a redhead. So, Yeah, a hot transsexual redhead. If you're a hot transsexual redhead between the ages of 20 and 40, call me. Damn it. Okay, so Dr. Hoffman, played by Grayson Hall, who she did a pretty good job. In the beginning, I didn't really like her too well, but then as the series progressed, she started to grow on me. She goes to Collinwood and tries to find out what exactly happened to Maggie and why she became insane. Dr. Hoffman has this little medallion or this little amulet that she twirls around, and she hypnotizes Maggie and makes her forget everything. And yeah, eventually she never remembers any of what Barnabas did to her until about like 500 episodes later. She kind of starts to remember, but out of nowhere. I don't know what happened there. Okay, so eventually Dr. Hoffman finds out Barnabas' secret, and Barnabas, he's gonna kill her. But then 1,000 episodes later, they become best friends. Isn't that funny how in the beginning you can hate someone, but all your passion, you want to kill them, and then you become best friends? Ah! Yeah. So there's one episode where Barnabas pretty much tortures Dr. Hoffman by making it look like there's a ghost in her room, by pretty much scaring her shitless. And I thought that was a pretty good episode, actually. And then eventually they hold a seance to try to contact the spirit of Sarah Collins. And then Victoria Winters is transported back to the year 1795. Or is it 1797? I don't know. The writers need to make up their minds with this. So that kind of reminded me of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. You know, when Harry Potter is reading the diary of Tom Riddle and how he's transported back to like 50 years ago when all the, stuff was happening and Moaning Myrtle was killed. Why am I talking about Harry Potter? This is Dark Shadows. But, why did Tom Riddle have a diary? That's pretty girly, if you ask me. It should be a journal. It should be the journal of Tom Riddle, not a diary. Dudes don't have diaries. It's not cool with Tom Riddle. What's the matter with you? Okay, now back to Barnabas. So Victoria Winters is transported back to 1795, and she's wearing her 1960s clothes, looking all, I guess hip for that time period. But then, the people in the 1790s are like, oh, what are you wearing? Witchcraft, I tell you. Yeah, Abigail Collins. Oh, she was so annoying. I hated her. Because, every piece of dialogue that she said was just about how much of a witch that Victoria Winters was. And they really got on my nerves. In fact, when I was watching this, it was like September or October of, last year. I wanted to skip it. I wanted to skip the whole 1790 storyline and go back to present time, back to the 1968 storyline or whatever. But I pressed on. I sucked it up and I kept watching. So, yeah, we have Barnabas Collins is shown what he was like before he became the vampire that we know and love. And we see that he's getting ready to marry his love, Josette Dupré. And then Angelique, the real witch, comes in. And you find out that it's Angelique's fault that Barnabas is the vampire that we know and love today. How many times am I going to say that? And so she puts curses on almost all his family members. She, forces little Sarah, Barnabas' sister, to get sick and die. And she forces Barnabas' uncle / cousin, Jeremiah. What was Jeremiah? For anyone that's watched this series, what was Jeremiah to Barnabas? Was he some kind of awkward incest uncle cousin thing in there somewhere? Does anyone really know? Because he said both. I don't know what he was to him. I don't understand. And the actor that played Jeremiah was played by the second actor who played Burke Devlin, the Burke Devlin poser. I think Anthony George, I think was his name. No, he did not. He is not Burke Devlin. Mitchell Ryan is Burke Devlin. Burke Devlin forever. Mitchell Ryan. Mitchell Ryan, if you're watching this review, you are awesome as Burke Devlin. Come back as Burke Devlin. Make a Burke Devlin is still alive. Burke Devlin lives movie. Okay. You know, as far as I'm concerned, they said that Burke Devlin was killed off in South Africa or some plane. His plane crashed, and they never mentioned him again. But Burke Devlin is alive. I don't care what the writers say. Burke Devlin lives. Okay, so you have all these they're new to us, but they're the original family that lived in the old house, which was new at the time. They're building, the new Collinwood at this point. And you have Joshua Collins, which is Barnabas's father, who's very strict and very almost kind of abusive, and Barnabas's mother, who's just, Joshua isn't in love with his wife, and there's just kind of like there's no love in that relationship. They should have just broken up and got a reality show. So, this storyline was just so, it took forever. I know I'm stuttering and I'm stopping, which is what a lot of the actors did on the show, which we'll get to the goofs later. We'll talk about I need to remember to talk about the goof ups and the bloopers. Okay, so Victoria Winters becomes the governess to Sarah and, I don't know, David Collins' 1790 counterpart. I can't really think of his name right now. And she is tried for a witch, and that just went on forever, and I hated it. Well, at the time I hated it, but maybe now, if I go back and rewatch it, maybe I'd like it. And then you have Reverend Trask. Oh, talk about overacting and melodramatic, and I don't know, just Reverend Trask was so, he was so into his, I'm going to cast out the witch and she'll burn in hell forever. I don't know, just something like that. And there was 3 Reverend Trasks throughout the whole series. The actor, there's 4 characters. First he was Tony Peterson, some bland lawyer that Carolyn was supposed to be with, and she was trying to get some book from, I think. Then he was the first Reverend Trask, and he became the great-grandfather, or the great-grandson to Reverend Trask, and he became Reverend Trask's son throughout the whole thing. I don't know, it's all a time travel thing that I'll try to remember to think of later. So there's a trial, and Peter Bradford is Victoria Winters' lawyer trying to get her off, and he fails. Yeah, Victoria Winters is eventually tried as a witch, and she's hung. So Barnabas gets his revenge on Reverend Trask as he slowly becomes the vampire, and he gets revenge on Nathan Forbes, I think was this kind of lieutenant that was dating Millicent Collins, I think was her name. I can't remember. Millicent Collins was off. She wanted to date one of her cousins or something. I'm trying to remember. It's a little hazy at this point. If you see me looking off over there, it's because I have all my notes over there. There's no way I could possibly review all 1,225 episodes without, having some kind of thing to look at. Okay, so eventually, when Vicky is hung as the witch, she's transported back to 1968. And now this is getting to a storyline that I do like.